What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for March 2nd, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a rainy Saturday edition of the podcast. Lots to get to today, so let's jump right in. As always, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, which Philly star is most valuable to their team? Not necessarily the best, but who's the most valuable? And 60% of you said it was, in fact, Joe. Hard to argue that when you look at how this team has been playing since he's gone out. Jalen and Bryce were tied with 40% or 20% of the vote. And I get that because the Phillies have proven they can maintain without Bryce. But you could certainly make the argument for Jalen because, I mean, if you look at how he played throughout last year compared to the year before, he was a little off, and you see the whole team looked out of sync. But I think Joe is the correct answer there. So as always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. There'll be another one later in the show. 267-495-8531 gets you in. Lots of feedback about other things, and some of it pertaining to this. First, good to know that my school was not the only one that did the in like a lion, out like a lamb thing for March. I heard them talk about it on a couple different news outlets yesterday that March certainly came in yesterday as a lamb. It was a beautiful day out, and now here we are with the rain. So it kind of justified and made me feel a little bit better about life. But there was a lot of talk about the grassroots movement that was brought up by Matt from Fort Washington, and Joe should be the MVP. And I still think it's worth looking into, and I don't think it'll ever change because the MVP award goes back years. But I do think there should be a distinction between outstanding versus valuable. And to me, like, you can have you can be the best player and play for a shitty team, or you could be the most valuable. And we're seeing that with Joe. Like, I don't know. Again, keep the feedback on that coming because I do think it's a fun conversation to have. Not necessarily something we need to dive into, but Joe, as voted by you, the listeners, was the most valuable star for his team in Philadelphia. Let's stick with the Sixers. Good win, 121-114 over the Hornets. Would have liked to see them win by a little bit more since I bet them at -9.5, but that's okay. Much needed. Tobias hopefully this is a sign of him snapping out of his slump. Him and Maxey both had over 30. Just a solid win, a much needed win for this team. But the big news was that Joe was interviewed, and he did say he wants to come back this year no matter what. And I think that's like a key thing. He wants to come back whether or not his team is in the play-in. It doesn't matter when he wants to play. He wants to come back. And that's what you want to hear. And it didn't seem like he was like he was serious in this interview. Usually he's goofing around. And when he was pressed, I think it was Keith Pompey, asked him what's the timeline, and he did say there is no timeline. He did say he's feeling good, and ultimately, if he's cleared to play, he's going to play. He said, again, in his mind, if he's feeling fine and his knee is healthy, he's going to play. What that means in the big picture, I don't know. But it was good to hear him talk and seem like he wants to come back and support his team and be there. Also, the Sixers announced they're going to put an Allen Iverson statue up at their practice facility to go along with the other ones. And I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's actually pretty cool, like the practice facilities. They've tailgated sort of catty corner for a concert out there. But pretty cool, the AI, and they plan on doing an honoring of him at some point next year. And I have to say, I feel like, and I like AI. I'm not, and this is in no way ripping, but man, has anybody gotten more nights and honorings at a Sixers game than AI, or anybody in sports for that matter? Just something that I noticed. be sure to check out my interview on Back to the Future with Brian Michael, the producer of A League Apart. I had a good time sitting down with him. It's Back to the Future with a PH, wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe to This Day in Philly Sports History. Let's start growing this thing and really get it going. And so that way, when we do a grassroots movement to try to get Joe to be the MVP, we can say, hey, we have all of these listeners and supporters. So go check out the interview with Brian Michael. Check out the information on A League Apart, because it's a really well put together exhibit and really opens your eyes as to what the legacy of the Negro Leagues really are in Philadelphia. So go check that out. The information is in the description. And be sure to like and subscribe both podcasts. All right, Flyers blew a 5-2 lead, or blew a 2-0 lead to lose 5-2 yesterday to the Capitals. Not good at all. I mean, Washington came in hungry. It was a tough place to play, but you can't be blowing a 2-0 lead like that, especially on the road when you're trying to get into the playoff race. And something that I don't know what to make of this, and I saw this on a couple different sites. I guess Jonesy was on WIP, I assume yesterday, or maybe at some point this week, and he was, I guess, on the morning show, and basically they came out publicly, the Flyers did, and said, we are rebuilding. But he did say they went to each player individually and said it was total BS. I don't know if it's tongue-in-cheek, because that's just kind of the way Jonesy is. I think it's worth, like, if that's the belief in the building, that explains to me why they're playing that way. But again, it kind of, hopefully, and people, I saw some people on Twitter taking this and run with it, but it just goes to show that sometimes you can't really take what the front office of a team, and sometimes even the coaches, say at face value, because ultimately they're not going to play their cards. So, and I think this goes into the relationship between fans and the media and the teams. Like, the teams are no obligation to give you what their plans are. Like, everybody, going back to when the Eagles season ended, everybody was like, Nick, what's your plan to fix Jalen? Yeah, like, I'm going to tell you in the middle of the interview so everybody has a blueprint on what we're doing. Like, so, I mean, maybe it's easier to say we're rebuilding and have teams overlook you. I don't know. Just one of those things, and with the media and things like that. I don't know. I'm not going on a media rant today. Trying to remain positive. But Flyers lost 5-2 to the Capitals yesterday. Not a good loss in their race for a playoff spot. But you know what's awesome? And I don't know I think they're new. I did not notice these when I was first looking, but if not, these are awesome. Go to phillygoat.com and check out their shoes. I've been talking about these shoes. They're awesome. I was working with my daughter last night, picking out which ones I'm going to start off ordering, which are the Fans and I think the Cape Mays, to be honest. So go check them out. But if you're a hockey fan, and I don't even know you have to be necessarily a huge hockey fan for this, the Ice Monsters. They are gritty, inspired canvas loafers, and they are incredible. Absolutely incredible. Go to phillygoat.com. Check out their canvas shoes for the summer. Get some Philly shirts while you're at it. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. But the Ice Monsters are incredible. All right. I mentioned the Phillies had a split squad game yesterday. Some good takeaways. In the one game, Ranger went 3 innings, gave up 1 hit, had 2 Ks. Rojas went 1 for 4, which I'll take that every day. Give me Johan Rojas going 1 for 4 every day, and I'll be happy. Especially the way he plays defense. And speaking of defense, Christian Pache had an amazing catch, and I really think once we get down to it, like late innings, if you have a lead, you have an outfield of Pache, Marsh, and Rojas, you're not getting anything. Like, nobody, there's no doubles that are getting hit. So I like the way this defense is shaping up. I've always liked Christian Pache. I know he got off to a rocky start in Philly, but had a great catch yesterday. Aaron Nola had a rough outing. Gave up like 4 runs, I think, in a couple innings. But again, they work on stuff, so I don't know if we should be overly concerned with that. Ryan Kerkering had a good, strong outing, 1 inning pitch and a K. Spencer Turnbull also had a good outing, had 2 innings pitched and 4 Ks. So it's definitely, the pitching staff has been the big thing that's been sticking out for me so far in spring training for the Phillies, which I think if we're going to go and make a run for it, which there's no reason why we shouldn't, and that's going to be the key to it. And there's a couple things with that I wanted to mention. It is a leap year. We talked about that earlier this week, but 1980 was a leap year. 2008 was a leap year. And both of those years, they had gone to the playoffs previously and came in with high expectations. I'm not saying anything, but if you're a numbers person and believe in things like that, I mean, there is something to be said about that. And I know there's been a lot of talk, too. I've noticed, I heard it on WIP, and I've also seen it around on Twitter, and I don't know if it was people taking it from WIP, but there's been a lot of folks that are saying, I can't believe, I wish they would stop talking about the World Series and setting themselves up. And I mean, one, I like it. I mean, this team, that's the expectation of this team, is to go back to the World Series and talk about it. I mean, nobody, like, people were up, I remember people were on edge when Jimmy Rollins said, we're the team to beat. So I think talking about, yeah, damn right. We are World Series or bust. And they're like, oh, people are, the argument against is, oh, you're setting yourselves up to be disappointed. And we're going to be whether or not we talk about it, we're going to be disappointed. So I say, let's go. We're going to the World Series. Like, that is the expectation of this team. Let's go with it. All right, the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame ballot is out and votes are coming back in. I'm part of the team that is tallying the votes, and it's shaping up to be one phenomenal class. Lots of heavy hitters on there. While you don't have an opportunity to have your voice heard specifically on who gets in as a fan, they are offering your chance to get your voice heard. Go to phillyhall.org/fansvoice. There is a ballot that you can fill out, and if your ballot matches closest to the ballot that the official induction class, you'll win 2 VIP tickets to the ceremony in November. The deadline for that is this coming Friday. So go to phillyhall.org/fansvoice. The link is also in the description. Fill out your ballot for a chance to win 2 VIP tickets to the ceremony in November. And like I said, it's shaping up to be a pretty big class. And once you fill out your ballot, you'll see what I'm talking about. So go to phillyhall.org/fansvoice. Fill out a ballot for a chance to win 2 VIP tickets to the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. All right, bubble watch time. And I feel like I need a sounder. I need this is where I need a Baba Booey, which is why you need to like and subscribe to the podcast. But I feel like if I had like a bubble sound here, bubble watch time. Anyway, Villanova takes on Providence today at noon in a huge game, a very huge game. Right now, Joey Brackets has Villanova listed as the first team out of the tournament and Providence as the last team in. So this game has huge implications for both teams as they try to punch their ticket to the tournament. And again, other sites have different things, but to me, the track record of Joe Lunardi, a local Philly guy, on top of it all, it's St. Joe's guy, but that's typically how his accuracy is usually spot on. So this game is huge for both teams, but for our Villanova Wildcats, we need them to come out and beat Providence today. I don't think it will burst their bubble to lose this game, but it will go a long way in helping them reach the tournament. Some Eagles news. They're waiving Kevin Byard, basically going to free up $13 million in cap space. I'm okay with it. It kind of just didn't work out with his during that trade, and that happens. I mean, there's better safeties out there for the Eagles to get, so I'm okay with that. Interesting take, and this man's a legend, and I'm almost hesitant to say I disagree with him, but Ray Didinger was on. I saw an interview with him, and he basically said, with all the love for Nick Sirianni, I'm paraphrasing here, but something along the lines of, if you really loved your coach, the time to show it would have been that playoff game against Tampa Bay. And respectfully, Mr. Dittinger, I disagree, because at that point, all was lost at that point. If you're going to make that argument, I say the time to do it was Seattle. The time to do it was the Giants or the Cardinals. By the time the Tampa Bay game came, all was lost. And everybody said it, whether it was A.J. Brown, even the coaching staff to a certain point. I can't think of the punt returner. Like, everybody said, everybody was uptight and they were pressing to try to break out of it. And the more you press, the more everything gets magnified and amplified. And I think they were trying to show that love for their coach. It was just they were trying so hard to get there that it just was not able to do it. So respectfully, Mr. Dittinger, I disagree. I 100% respect you. I have a couple of your books over on my shelf that I use to help me with research, but I think you're wrong on this one. I think by the time the Tampa Bay game came, it was way too late. There is a rumor out there that the Cowboys are interested in Hassan Reddick, and I really, really hope, anyway, I don't think there's any chance that Howie Roseman trades a guy like Hassan Reddick to the Cowboys. That would just be dumb. But all that being said, we're getting ready. We're getting close. The calendar is there. It's time to let Howie cook and do his thing as we approach free agency. All right, today we're going to go back to 1962. And on this day, 1962, the Philadelphia Warriors beat the New York Knicks 169-147 in Hershey, PA, which was the Warriors' training facility, in front of 4,124 fans. Now, why am I telling you about this? Because you know this game. This was Wilt's 100-point game, and one of the most legendary games in NBA history. And again, I always tell you that I could do a This Day in Wilt Chamberlain history and have plenty of content, but this is one of those times where this is a huge day for the NBA and Philadelphia basketball. But a little, like, if you break down that 100 points, it makes it even more impressive. He shot 36 for 63, 28 for 32 from the free throw line, which is huge, because if he didn't shoot that well from the free throw line, he doesn't get to 100 point. He shot 88% from the free throw line, which he was a 51% free throw shooter in his career. It was one of the things that really, if you could say was an Achilles heel of Wilt Chamberlain, it was free throw shooting. So the fact that he shot 88% on the day he scored 100 points, he doesn't get to 100 points without making his free throws. He had 25 rebounds to boot. So he had 100 points and 25 rebounds in the same game and added two assists. Now, everybody knows it's the record right now for most points in a game. Well, it was the record for most free throws made in a game, which was later tied by Adrian Dantley in 1984. It was also the highest scoring game in NBA history at the time with 316 points. It is now in a three-way tie for 8th. If you're scoring at home, I like doing this for you. 370 points were scored in a game between the Pistons and the Nuggets back in 1983. It was a 186-184 triple overtime game. But Wilt set the record, most field goals made and attempted in a game, which still stands today. Broke his own record at the time of 78 points in a game as the most in a game. He set that earlier that season, just about 2 months. I believe it was in December of 1961 he set that. The game, believe it or not, was not televised. And that's because when this was happening, the league was only about 15, 16 years old, and it was considered a secondary sport. It was not a major sport, and for basketball, college basketball was king. So it was no television coverage of this game at all. The game was on the radio. Bill Campbell had the call. Over the years, they were able to kind of piece together some of his calls of this game. The fourth quarter was a foul fest because the Knicks obviously were trying to stop Wilt from scoring 100, and knowing that he was a terrible free throw shooter, that's what their thought was. But then the Warriors were fouling the Knicks to get the ball back for Wilt Chamberlain. So it was just a sloppy game because it got to the point, at one point, they were trying to get Wilt 100. Dave Zinkoff, who was the PA announcer. These are all like legends in Philadelphia basketball. But Dave Zinkoff started to count Wilt's points every time he made a field goal or made a foul shot, so the crowd started to get into it. Harvey Pollack, the PR guy for both the Sixers and the Warriors, and he was just the stat guy. He's the guy that made the sign that Wilt held up that said 100 on it. 40,000 people have claimed to be over the years to be there, but there was only 4,000 people there. Lost in this, Guy Rodgers had 20 assists, and he said after the game, when Wilt's scoring the way he was, it's easy to get assists. Al Attles was the next highest scorer for the Warriors with 17. So a little bit more about this season. On this day in 1962, Wilt scored his 100 points, but that 61-62 season, just listen to these numbers. And this is why I say I could do this day in Wilt Chamberlain history. Wilt averaged 50.4 points a game, 25.7 rebounds, 48.5 minutes a game. Now let that sink in for a minute. He played 48.5 minutes per game. An NBA game is 48 minutes. This dude averaged more, like, that's me, obviously with overtime, but this dude averaged more than a full game in the entire season. Yeah, it was only by 0.5 minutes, but whatever. He didn't win the MVP in 1962. Wilt Chamberlain did not win the MVP in 1962, the year he averaged 50 points and 25 rebounds, averaged over 48 minutes a game, and scored 100 points in a game. Didn't win the MVP because they gave it to Bill Russell because the Celtics won the championship. Bill Russell averaged 18.9 and 23.6. So it just kind of goes to show you that the media was just biased against Philly teams even back then. But on this day, back in 1962, Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in a game against the Knicks while playing for the Warriors. The final score of that game was I always forget what the score of that game was. Where'd it go? 169 to 147. That leads us, though, to today's question of the day. What is the most unbreakable record in sports? And I tried to keep this things that could possibly happen. So, like, averaging 50 points a game probably is never going to happen. So I didn't include that. Cal Ripken's game streak, didn't add that. Nolan Ryan pitching 7 no-hitters in a career. Nobody's ever going to come close. Even Pete Rose's hit streak, I didn't really go. So these are things that I think could possibly happen, but they're really untouchable. So which is the most unbreakable record in sports? Wilt's 100-point game, Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak, or 7 sacks by Derek Thomas in one game? Or is it something else I'm missing? Let me know. 267-495-8531. Get you into the voicemail and text message line. What is the most unbreakable record in sports? 100 points in a game, 56-game hitting streak in Major League Baseball, or 7 sacks in one game? Let me know. 267-495-8531. All right, finally today, our Philly Sports Women's History Spotlight is Fredia Gibbs. Fredia is a Chester native. She was a basketball player, a boxer, kickboxer, martial artist, and literally a certified badass. She was nicknamed the Cheetah because of her track prowess while at Chester. From Chester, she went on to Temple to play track and basketball. Spent 1 year at Temple before transferring to Cabrini to play basketball. While at Cabrini, she was a 3-time Kodak All-American. After her career at Cabrini, she went to Germany to play professionally. Averaged 30 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists a game. Just no big deal. After her basketball career, she came back and started her martial arts career. So while she was at Cabrini and even Chester, she started karate to combat being bullied and to help build up her confidence and self-esteem. She's won 3 Taekwondo World Championships by the time she left Cabrini, had a black belt. So all this while playing basketball at a very high level, obviously. After basketball, though, she came back and was like, I'm going to be a kickboxer. While being a kickboxer, she went 16-0-1 with 15 knockouts. That draw, the only blemish, if you call it that, on her record, was versus a man in an exhibition. And it was a draw. So again, when I say she is a certified badass, she's a certified badass. She became the first African-American female to hold the International Sports Karate Association Championship. When she got bored with that, she started professionally boxing. She went 9-2-1 with 2 knockouts in her boxing career. Injuries and I think age kind of caught up with her, and she retired. She got into acting. She does some modeling. She wrote an autobiography, and obviously she was voted one of the greatest, if not the greatest, female athlete in Philadelphia sports history, or just Philadelphia history. I mean, I can't think of anybody athletic-wise who would be better than Fredia. She's gotten the key to the city of Chester. She's in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, the Cabrini Hall of Fame. There's a statue of her outside of Cabrini. She's in the Hall of Fame at Chester for both track and basketball. She is in the Mickey Vernon Sports Legend Museum in Delaware County for Black History. They have a lot of her memorabilia there. She's the greatest African-American female athlete of all time in kickboxing. And like I said, she will kick your ass if you disagree. But in all seriousness, Fredia Gibbs is just phenomenal. To have just her basketball career alone probably would have gotten her on this list. Just her mixed martial arts career and kickboxing and boxing would have gotten her on the list. The fact that she did both at a very high level, incredible. So Fredia Gibbs, shout out to you. Today's women's Phillies. Yeah, I'll get it out. Today's Philadelphia. Let's take 2. Today's Philly Sports Women's History Spotlight. Fredia Gibbs, just boxer, kickboxer, martial artist, basketball player, author, model, public, just motivational speaker, you name it, and a certifiable badass to boot. Shout out to you, Miss Gibbs. And on this day, back in 1962, Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in one game. A 169-147 win over the Knicks in Hershey. Question of the day: what is the most unbreakable record in sports? Wilt's 100-point game, Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak, 7 sacks in one game, or something else I'm totally missing. Let me know that or whatever's on your mind on a rainy Saturday. 267-495-8531. If you're bored, have a couple adult beverages and just vent whatever you want on the line today. All right. Rooting for those Villanova Wildcats today. Yes, I can confidently say that as a Temple guy. Burst the Providence Friars bubble today. Kyle Neptune. Let's do it. More on that game tomorrow. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Saturday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.